Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to Pepe Update today. Now I actually had to close some of my trades yesterday, including Pepe as well. And a part of me is kind of gonna feel guilty, and a part of me says it's just better to close. Now, let me address this issue. Now, understand one thing. I still think Pepe is really down at 916 right now. It's still super cheap. That I'm still asking myself, why did I still end up closing it? But there's something that I'm looking at that is probably a very small, tiny detail. Number one, and the second thing that I'm looking at is a very big detail. Right? There are two different details, and then there's another third detail that I'm looking at, which is another big detail. And I'm gonna go into the details of these things. I have been saying that this trend line is amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've been saying that. Don't get me wrong in here, okay? And slowly, also, if you ever lose the trend line, if you do come down 780 or whatever, you will end up creating this bear flag. You can see that they're trying to create a bear flag, which is still not in play right now because you're holding support. So what is the small tiny detail? The small tiny detail, number one, is the trend line perhaps being like this. Okay? Perhaps the trend line is like this. And all along I have been ignoring this trend line. Perhaps the trend line is like this, and it's not the other way around, because what if I'm looking at one touch here, another touch right there, another touch right here, and another touch right there, a loss of support down and a retest to the upside. Right? This is small, tiny change of the trend line. Because that's the reason why I created a lot of doubt as to whether what my entries were good or not. Because to me, this is a loss of support and a retest back to the support with a huge rejection on the daily time frame. Okay. Now, how good will that actually be? How accurate will that actually be? Whatever I just showed you right now, or this change, this little bit of a trend line change, how accurate can that be? Right. So for that one, I saw this pattern. Now, this is the second point. This is a big detail, right? This is a big detail. And I want to show you, actually, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, because whatever happened back from October 29 all the way to 7th of December, you can see that this is a pattern that has repeated again. So it's this is a bigger version of this one right here. Do you see that? Right? And I noticed, I don't know if this is a pattern or not, but it's almost like an ascending broadening wedge in my opinion. So you had that resistance line as well previously, and you kind of wigged down. So if we go back and we study this, we have the first top right here, the second top right there, the third top right over here. This is the first top, that's the second one, and you pretty much had the third one. All right? And then you had this ascending triangle, and all of them were actually ascending in a very similar fashion right there. Okay? Very similar. And then what you did is you made a wick to the downside. So this is where I'm going to zoom in a little bit, show you the wick. So you did a wick down and you came up for the retest, and you can see that you failed the retest and you got rejected, and then you started to go to the downside. And how low did you go? Right? How low did you go? So take the fibs and look at the fibs, and that's where you're going to get your answer. So if we get the fib retracements, you can look at the bottom to the top, and your next support was actually down to the 0.618, which was at 93. Okay, so you came down and retested 93 back in the days. Okay, so what if this wick that we saw, that wick right over there, this one right over here, this candle here, that wick down, retest, fail, drop down, is the modern time wick that happened previously. Do you remember some few days ago when the market was really red and you made this one dragonfly wick down? What if the trend line is actually like this, and that similar pattern is playing out, and all you're about to do is, you went down, that wick happened and the retest happened, and it's time for you to go to the downside? And how low can you go if we consider 0.618? What if you're gonna drop down to the 0.618 one more time the way you did before? Then Pepe could actually go from this bottom here to that top right there, and you could actually expect 388 as the 0.618 technical target in here. So one more thing, the last one, and that's the big detail, a part of a big detail, and that's going to be Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has, and this is bad. I'm going to tell you one thing that I thought in a second, and this is really bad because, again, Bitcoin clearly, okay, this is really clear that you have Adam and Eve double top, right? So a narrow top and a wide top is called as Adam and Eve double top, and you are about to actually come down and break below that support line, retest, and then go down. Now, what was I thinking before the prices came down, like before Pepe came down to 970 levels? I used to think that Bitcoin has a CME gap at 77,000, and of course that's another problem that is really bothering me, that Bitcoin has a CME gap at $77,000. And if Bitcoin makes it all the way down here, right, if it comes down here, then I thought that Pepe is going to also come to 970, because Pepe is coming from 2,800, and it's already down to nearly 1,000 here, right? So 970. So that's already a big discount of 70% move. What about Bitcoin? If you look at Bitcoin from the all-time high, it's actually down only 13%, 13%. That's it. That's it. Every other single coin, you can see all-time low is actually in for some coins, for example, WIF. And Bitcoin still has to move to 77K. And by the time it moves to 77K, it does look like Pepe is going to be swiped off. Now, hear me out. I'm still very positive in the long run here. It's just that maybe 2 to 3 months we're not going to see a good market at all. Okay. If we're not going to see a good market, then it's going to take 2 to 3 months for a very bad market that can scare a lot of people. But in the long run, I'm still very positive on the whole crypto in general. As a matter of fact, back in 2020, we had capitulation like this. Okay, it's not new. We had capitulations where Binance went crashing down, Bitcoin went crashing down because of coronavirus, Ethereum went crashing down as well. But every single one of them still had a bull run, and they had a massive bull run where 100x nearly was almost achieved. So last thing is that Bitcoin has a junction here, and the maximum time for Bitcoin next move is going to be 5 of March. So you have this upper resistance coming up and the lower support coming up, and you're going to have a junction until 4 to 5 of March. And then until 5 of March, we're going to get to see what happens with Bitcoin. And if they want to play out the Adam and Eve double top, they're going to just drop it down to this technical target. And that's all for the video. I'm going to see you in the next one. Love.